coming up on today's show.
With my acting students at dramatic arts, when I'm teaching them filmmaking, I am constantly pushing them towards the future because that's where the future of acting is going to be. There's going to be more of a benefit for actors as like these hybrid technologists and hybrid futurists than there are as like what it used to be, which was like, let's wait by the phone and have somebody call us and then do a part. Like that's not going to be the case very, very soon, right? And it's kind of starting now. What are the foundational building blocks of designing a dramatic narrative? Because that you can take into the future. The building blocks for drama in order to affect human beings has not changed. What has changed was how we consume that drama.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Think Forward. I've got something really special for you today. You know, one of the things I love most about the Futures community is how we all come to this work from different paths. Some of us are strategists, some of us are technologists, and some are designers. But every once in a while, you meet someone whose journey is so unique, so groundbreaking, that it completely shifts how you think about the future. My guest today is Ahmed Best. Now, you might know Ahmed as the pioneering performer behind Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars. And yes, we definitely talk about that groundbreaking work in performance capture technology. But what you might not know is Ahmed is also a brilliant futurist, an Afrofuturist. He's an educator at the USC Film School and a co-creator of an incredible game called Algorithms. Ahmed and I met many years ago, and we have a strong friendship as fellow futurists. What strikes me about his work is how he brings this incredible combination of performance, technology, and cultural innovation to futures thinking. He's not just imagining the future, he's literally performing it into existence. In our conversation, we dive deep into how artists approach technology different than Silicon Valley, why emotional intelligence is crucial for futures work, and how his experience growing up in the Bronx during the birth of hip-hop shaped his vision of what's possible. This is a conversation about creativity. It's about breaking boundaries and about why the future needs more play and fewer safe futures. Welcome to Afro-Rhythms, Storytelling, and Breaking Through with Ahmed Best.
All right, Ahmed, welcome to the show. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's about time.
It's about time.
We've been circling for a long time, trying to get some time on the books, but
yeah, man, it's so good to have you. You know, you've had this amazing journey, you know, through performance, filmmaking, futures thinking. Let's talk about, you know, kind of your path, because you've had some real groundbreaking things in your life that you've experienced, but you've come into futures, being a futurist, as everyone does, kind of accidentally. So what's your journey? What's been your background?
yeah, you know, the more I reflect on it, the more I realize that I was kind of always destined to be in this world. Growing up where I grew up, you know, I grew up in the South Bronx in New York City in the 70s, 80s. I was huge into comic books and I was huge into computers, right? So the Commodore PET was the first computer that I played with in a science class.
Yep.
My science teacher, Mr. Goldberg, brought in this computer that none of us inner city kids ever saw before, and he blew our mind. And I wrote a program. My very first program was in BASIC, the language BASIC.
Yes, 10 start, 20 go to 10.
Go to 10, totally.
Yeah.
That was it. And I wrote like a simple string program that was just like my name across the screen infinitely. And I was hooked. You know, I was really hooked into what technologically the future could be. But even before that, you know, I was just a huge science fiction fan. My mother was a huge Star Trek fan. So I would watch Star Trek all the time, like the OG series.
Yeah.
It was Star Trek, comic books, and hip hop. So growing up in the South Bronx, hip hop music started on my block. At the time, we didn't realize that this was going to be a phenomenon that was going to change the world, right? We just liked the music. And, you know, being a little kid, across the street from my building was this empty lot where, you know, it was my elementary school. And then there was this empty lot where we would like play sports and there was like basketball hoops there. But every summer, DJs would set up turntables in that park, and people from all over the neighborhood would come in, and it would be parties all night long until the break of dawn, right? Literally to the break of dawn. My parents hated it. You know what I'm saying? Like, my father was just like, I got to go to work. But, you know, I would be hanging out at the window watching this party all night long. So I didn't really know who was there until I got a little bit older. But what I learned was like all the DJs that started hip hop music were in that park. Kool Herc, who was pretty much the inventor of hip hop, Grandmaster Flash, Melly Mel, the rapper. All of these guys from the South Bronx who invented hip hop were in that park in the summertime in the South Bronx in New York City. Grandmaster Flash specifically was a big influence in hip hop music because he created the crossfader, right?
Yeah.
For the DJ crossfader.
Yep.
He was an electrician. And before Grandmaster Flash, it'd be like 5 turntables, 5 amplifiers, right? But Grandmaster Flash created the switch that went from one set to another set. So all now you need is 2, and the party can go all night long. And no volume knob. Keep the volume the same, right?
Did he ever patent that?
No.
That?
And
No.
it's the most heartbreaking story in hip hop music because he wanted to be a DJ, and making money as a DJ meant spinning records all night long. He didn't realize that this invention that he created was the invention that allowed hip hop to travel. And he never patented the idea, which is just heartbreaking because we owe a lot, like EDM music, we owe techno, we owe drum and bass, all kind of DJ driven music we owe to Grandmaster Flash, right? And then companies, of course, millions off of the mixer, which is now standard for every DJ, right? But growing up in New York at that time, it was such a pivotal time and such a time of innovation. And I was always like, I loved it. I loved the innovation. I loved being on the cutting edge. I love seeing what's next. New York has kind of this reputation about knowing what's coming before it actually happens. And it was kind of Silicon Valley before Silicon Valley because of Bell Labs in the 60s.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, post-World War II, 50s, 60s, Billy Kluver, Robert Rauschenberg, and they created these happenings all throughout Greenwich Village. Kind of art and science innovation started in New York City, and it really permeated through the entire city. My grandmother used to live in Flushing, Queens, and Flushing was the site of the World's Fair. And all of the artifacts from the World's Fair are still there.
This is the Men in Black saucers.
Exactly.
Yeah. For those of you, yes. That's Flushing. Yep.
I grew up with those, right? So the flying saucers from Men in Black and Flushing, Grandmaster Flash, Star Trek, science fiction, all of that stuff made me like really hunger for not only being a part of a future, but helping to craft a future. I didn't know you can do it as a job, right? I didn't know it was a thing that people did. I only thought it was a thing that either people did speculatively in fiction, or it was a thing that, you got around and you talked, right? I didn't realize it was a job until Phantom Menace. Like when I met George Lucas, George Lucas is probably one of the most influential futurists I've ever met and or known. Even though he doesn't necessarily call himself a futurist, but we owe a lot of not only ideas of the future, but inventions of the future to him pushing the envelope of what could be done in his art form. In order for him to make things, he had to invent the things that could make those things possible. And, George and I used to talk a lot during the shooting. And, there were times where I would like drive to work with him. And we would always be talking about 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, right? So I would like come up with a question and he would answer my question. And he was like, 50 years from now, this is what it's going to be. 100 years from now is what it's going to be. 200 years from now. And like, that's how he would always talk. That's how he would always think. And so I kind of got addicted to that thinking, and being a part of the team with George, Lucasfilm, and ILM, like ILM, everybody thinks that, you know, Industrial Lights and Magic, they're just like, this is going to be this now. What is this going to look like in 50 years?
It's literally magic at the end of the word. I mean,
Amazing.
What did Arthur C. Clarke say? It was like, if you see something sufficiently farther in the future without the understanding of the technology, it'll look like magic, right?
Yes,
exactly.
absolutely.
And to kind of, as you kind of continue this journey, you're right. He is, we'll call him one of the stealthy futurists, because what he invented, what most people don't consider, especially the kids now, he created the concept of the used future. Because everything before that, Logan's Run, any movie you saw was all this beautiful, like an Apple store. It was like clean lines, not a speck of dirt, right? No imperfections. Whereas you watch a show like Andor now, and you just get this grittiness of it. His vision created that, because that universe has been around for so many years. And it's like, so as you're doing this, I think about, you did stuff even before Lord of the Rings. You broke through in terms of performance capture. How has that influenced your kind of the way you look at technologies? How is that? Because that's an interesting aspect to Future's work and the way it's performative. Because a lot of, you're right, is fiction, or a lot of it is interpretation of things, but you're bringing something in a live format of the future, right? How has that impacted you?
Yeah. So the thing that I really loved about performance capture was the fact that I was the ghost in the machine, right? So when you first do performance capture, and, they were writing the performance capture software as I was performing. So I think what a lot of people have to realize and understand, what we know as performance capture today didn't exist. That all of what we know as performance capture today was written with me as the physical code, right? So all of the code that has been written to capture images and or people, I'm in there, right? Even though I didn't write the lines of code. The lines of code were written as an inspiration off of my.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Okay, a quick pause from the show. Are you preparing for the future, or just hoping it doesn't catch you off guard? My new book, Super Shifts, is your guide to navigating the biggest transformations of our time: AI, automation, and the new world of work. And here's the deal. If you pre-order or grab your copy now, you'll get exclusive bonus content, including the behind-the-scenes look at what didn't make the final book. Stay tuned after the episode for details, but don't wait. Head to supershiftsbook.com and get your copy today. Now back to the show.
Because for them, this is the purest form of iteration, right? If you think about the way software is built, right?
Yes.
You're constantly, I guess in a sense, breaking things, because you're all constantly improving things. I think about Cameron's work on Avatar.
Yeah.
They invented new technologies for that, and they're building things as they're learning from the performances of, like, the different actors, and they're changing because something's not coming out. But it's not so much and I asked this question because it's about the emerging technology. I mean, how has that influenced your perspective as a futurist over these last 20 years, though? Because you're living in the emerging technology. It's like you're not like seeing it out there.
Yeah, well, it's actually, it made me, I'm not really afraid of it, to be honest.
Okay.
It really made me embrace it a lot more than a lot of people who are skeptical, because I can see the benefit for humanity with it, right? And this is why the arts, I think, is so important to the future conversation, right? I think when artists embrace the future, we are building things for, different reasons than a lot of the Silicon Valley folks are building things, right? We're not building it as a business, right? We're building it as an experience, and then it becomes a business, right?
Yes.
So it's mostly for the feeling of it. And, artists, we are a set of people who are constantly talking about our feelings. Like, we're professional
Right.
feeling people.
Yeah.
As an actor, I like to call myself an emotional athlete, right? Like, my job as an actor is
I love
to
that.
emote, right? When I'm asked, right? Just like, somebody says to Steph Curry, we need a three, he'll shoot the three. Somebody
Right.
says to me, I need you to cry on page 10, I'm crying on page 10, right? That's the training, right? That's what we're trained for as emotional athletes. We are trained to use our emotions to convey the truth of the moment, right? So as artists, when we embrace new technology, that ethos is the same, right? George said to Rob Coleman and John Knoll at ILM for my performance as Jar Jar, he said to them, follow Ahmed, right? He didn't say, look at him and then make some stuff up. He was like, no, put your faith and trust in his artistic ability, right? And that's what made the character come to life. And he was the first person ever to say that, right? Which is how, Peter Jackson could say, trust Andy Serkis, right? Which is how Cameron can say, trust Zoe Saldana and Sam Worthington, right? Like, he can say
Right.
that because now we're talking about the art and artists communicating, and that's driving the innovation. That's driving the technology. That's driving the future.
It's interesting that you bring those different actors and those characters because you are doing the performance, right? They have to trust you, right?
Yeah.
You're in a sense interpreting the future, interpreting what you're taking from that performance. What is interesting to me about all three of those films, all three of those types of motion captures, you, in a sense, the breakthrough work that you did, I think, is only finally being recognized a generation later for the groundbreaking work that was done. I think you all were so far ahead of your time that people just couldn't even understand it. And I think that now also people that are older, like they grew up with it, they recognize that. And I think you mentioned Andy, like, he's someone I would love to have a conversation with about when he pulls emotion out of it, how does he find the character that's already existing? And I mean, those books have been around for decades, for a long time, right? So there's a lot of weight. Like, you're creating Jar Jar as something who's original. He's never been seen before, right? Andy's got a different set of standard because he's got people's minds know what they think Gollum is. They have this mindset, right? He has to find the performance that is his at the same time while really being true to the books. And he looks at Peter to do that, right? It's like, how do you find that? It's an interesting.
It's really the collaboration, right?
Yeah.
It's a collaboration between the actor, the director, and the actor, the director, the technologists, and the animators, right? Really is this like symbiotic collaboration, right? Which is why I don't usually say that I was Jar Jar. I usually say we were Jar Jar because
I love
Jar Jar
that.
doesn't happen without Rob Coleman, John Knoll, George Lucas, me. Like, there's at least 4 people capturing the performance, right? And then there's an army of animators and visual effects people, right?
And there's millions of fans who really, really, really want you to be a Sith apprentice. I'm just saying, I saw your little way. That's hilarious. But I think that the performance, just Josh. So I think with the performance of that, it kind of brings us to like your work as a futurist and as an educator. You're at the USC Film School. So what, obviously people are going to have history. They're going to know you from the screen. They're going to take your class. And now you as a futurist, when you bring that to your class and the kind of communicate, like, how do you how do you bring in futures? How do you teach them, as I like to say, to be futures fluent in the way that they tell stories? Like, how do you take us through the kind of journey, like with students, like the way when you teach at USC, like what do you bring to that?
Absolutely. So I teach a class called Dramatic Narrative Design. And it's a class that I created. Dramatic narrative design is a term that I created because I realized that regardless of what position you play, when you're making a drama, you are a designer, right? You're either designing the performance as an actor, you're designing the set as a set designer, you're designing the lighting as either a cinematographer or a stage lighting person. So we're all in this on this design team together, right? The drama that you're designing has a certain set of parameters. And the reason why I started thinking this way is because when I was in film school, I felt like by the time they got to the actors, it was already too late.
Yeah. Got it.
Nobody was really looking at actors as part of the solution. And I came up in a film world where one of the best directors of all time, his big note to everybody on the team was trust Ahmed's performance.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the responsibility to be a part of the team in collaboration. And I wasn't a tool that you put in front of a lens. A lot of film schools, they teach that the actors are kind of just like this tool that you put in front of a lens, and you got to get the best looking one or the one with the most, Instagram followers, and you'll have a successful film, successful play. That's not the case. It does not work like that, right?
So you're saying as Instagram influencers, it becomes their resume? Or they're real, if you will.
Well, yeah, I mean, what happens with the Instagrams are, they're butts and seats, right? And if you're a marketing person, you're going to go for that, right?
Right. Yeah, it's true. That's true. You and I have known each other a long time, but I think at the core of you is you're a storyteller, right? You in different ways that you tell those stories. When you bring in with the students, is there anything else you wanted to kind of, is there anything you wanted to kind of add on the way you teach the classes? Because I'd love to talk about the students, and do you bring any gameplay in to it?
Always.
Okay.
Especially like when I'm talking to my students at Stanford.
Is it at the D school or is this?
It's so funny. I teach the same thing in both places.
Yeah. Okay.
But
they're different students. That's a different population.
Different students. Yeah.
Right. Different students.
Different population. Different students. With my acting students at dramatic arts, when I'm teaching them filmmaking, I am constantly pushing them towards the future because that's where the future of acting is going to be. There's going to be more of a benefit for actors as like these hybrid technologists and hybrid futurists than there are as like what it used to be, which was like, let's wait by the phone and have somebody call us and then do a part. Like that's not going to be the case very, very soon, right? And it's kind of starting now. So I am constantly expanding their idea of what, and this is why I call it dramatic narrative design. What are the foundational building blocks of designing a dramatic narrative? Because that you can take into the future. The building blocks for drama in order to affect human beings has not changed. What has changed was how we consume that drama. But the emotions behind the drama are the same. The reasons why we love things has not changed. It's been that way since we were, in the tribal square in Africa or cave paintings, right? That's why those things still affect us. When we see a cave painting, we're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that early humans made this, right? And what we're watching is their lives. And we imagine, we feel a way about it. We go, wow, that's what their day was like. And it affects us. It touches us emotionally, right? That's the foundation that I'm building with my students. How to identify, how to be emotionally affected, and then turn that into story that can then live in the medium of either today or the future. We have a lot about the medium of the past, right? We get hyper fixated on the past mediums, right? Rather than realize that. And this is George Lucas. Like, George Lucas had to say to ILM, no more miniatures, digital now, right? And they were scared.
When did he do that? When did he do that? Was that 99?
That was Attack of the Clones, 2000.
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones was the first digital major motion picture shot. And I remember when they wheeled the cameras in and they wheeled the monitors in. And I remember the first AD saying, check the gate. Oh, wait a minute. There is no gate, right? Because there's no film stock.
Right.
Everything is digital. So I watched everything change in real time, and I watched everybody have a hard time with it. Right?
I can imagine the growth. That is a systemic. That's systemic.
Yes. But the technology didn't do anything to the storytelling. And I think in general, this is what technology does. We advance technology to get the creativity out. One of the reasons why I think artificial intelligence and LLMs are doing so well now is because it takes away part of the production process that was very expensive, right? And now you have a digital assistant that could help you get the creativity out, right? Sooner, more efficiently. And you don't have to deal with the friction and the stress of trying to find the right person, hiring that person, getting the budget for that person not working out, firing that person, finding another person. You know what I'm saying? Like these things take time. So embracing the technologies in order to help you get more creativity out, help you get more stories out, help you feel more drama is how I push my students.
We'll be back after a quick break.
My name is Sherry Hazard, and this is the Folium Diary. In this diary, I will be recording my impressions of a new program called the Folium. This new app will bring the benefits of Earth's collective wisdom to everyone, everywhere, all the time. If that sounds wildly ambitious, utopian, and, let's face it, kind of crazy, join the club. I will be posting a new page every evening at 9 o'clock. What could possibly go wrong?
So with students, and just teaching those two schools, you also co-created Afro rhythms.
Yeah, with Dr. Lonnie Brooks.
Right. So Lonnie, you also, I know you presented this at the Dubai Future Forum this past year. So if anyone listening had attended that, love to hear from you because I heard it was amazing. Can you explain what that is and what are the desired outcomes with that game? Like, what is it? What is it? Is it prompt? What's the structure? What's the construct? What is it prompt and what are the outcomes?
Yes. So, Afrofuturism, usually is centered around art, either art ideas, art works, art narratives, right? So the centering of art being the inspiration for thought processes, technologies, algorithms is kind of the sweet spot of Afrofuturism. We draw a lot from futures thinking from either indigenous cultures or African cultures, hence the Afro, because Africa is probably some of the oldest civilizations on the planet, right?
Absolutely.
And because of a lot of erasure, we don't know a lot about the technological advances that happened on the continent. But, during the Islamic Golden Age, all of those things have carried over into today. And we don't really talk about where those things came from. Like, we don't talk about people like Ibn al-Haytham, who was probably the first person to create the scientific method, right? And that contribution has been lost, which slows down our future advancement. if we get rid of all the politics and just focus on how these things shape the future, we would be so far ahead, right? So Afrofuturism and Afro rhythms comes from that ethos. We're like, let's take away the politics of this, right? Let's take away these supremacist ideas of this, and let's imagine what it would be like if we had all of that information and created a universe and a world around that information that moves forward into the future, right? So that's what Afrorhythms does. Afrorhythms takes these ideas of what a Afrofuturist inspired universe would look like, right? And we use these cards we call tension cards. And the tension cards are what we may or may not have more or less of in the future, right? But the tension cards are usually subjective, right? So we'll have a tension card that would say Black superheroes and James Baldwin, right? And although you don't think of those things as future framing universal things, what we do is we talk. It's a very communicative game. It's about people, about community. So we talk and we define those terms. Like, what does a James Baldwin future look like? Right? What does that feel like? And depending on who's in the room, right, we come up with these ideas and we come up with these criteria. And then we place a planet in the middle of that universe and start building things on that planet. And it really is to like free your mind of where you are now. And I'm sure you've encountered this in your futures practice. Like, it's really hard to get people to imagine the future.
It is. There's actually a whole psychology of it that, in my master's program, we did the psychology of futures. And there are people who are actually afraid of thinking of the future. There are people who are fearful of it. I never thought of it in that way. It really kind of opened my mind, because the work that I did at places like McKinsey is like, people are very short-term thinkers and they don't want to pay. They pay for that work, but the idea of them, because I'm not going to be here like, and I don't care about 5 or 10 years. Like, let the marketing people give me cool things to say for the keynote, right? But the fear of that, it's an anxiety. I call it an anxiety wall, because there's a paralysis of the present that they're in. And in order to get them out of it, what we try and do is take something that they're familiar with, ask them how they handled COVID, or other things in the world. Then we try and get them to imagine a different outcome of the past. And then what I love this term from Julian Bleecker. He's a design fiction, he's one of the pioneers of design fiction. He calls it future archaeology. So it's like you almost like out of body yourself to imagine you're seeing the future and what you dig out of it. So you're not personalizing it to like your future. You're just connecting yourself. And if you can disconnect somebody in the abstract, then it frees them to think about the possibility without the consequence.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I was thinking about was when you did this at Dubai Future Forum, and John Sweeney told me you guys were just amazing, is like, what did you find? Because there's a diverse group that come to that conference. Did you find like a consistent thing did you find any surprises that came out of that? Like what surprised you and Lonnie the most? I mean, I speak for him, but like what surprised you both from that?
Yeah, well, Dubai was so interesting because there were a lot of futurists there, but there was a very like safe, it was like everybody's like safe future, right?
Okay.
Nobody was really kind of
like the way you said that, safe future.
Yeah, it was. Right? It didn't really like
the preferred future, the safe. Right. Okay.
Everybody was just like, let's just kind of keep it even and not ruffle any feathers. And Afrorhythms is really about your radical imagination, right? It's not really about your safe imagination. And then sometimes safety can be really kind of boring. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of conversations that, made me go, okay, but it didn't make me go, yes, right? Because I come from a futures practice that is emotional, right? I want to say yes. Like, I want to be like, that. I want that. Like, I got that. Oh, I'm in. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
gamify something, right? The game should be kind of fun, you know?
Well, it's again the abstract. You're taking somebody out of it. So there's not this personal connection. They're just playing a game.
Right.
They're doing an experience. The game has a finite outcome. It's like, this is the thing we do.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be my job or this or that, but it allows them to play.
Yes.
It allows them to explore, right?
Yeah. And I play for a living, and most people don't.
That's true.
They don't realize what they're missing out on. So when I, do an algorithms game, I want everybody to feel what it feels like to play for a living, right? Because it's extremely freeing, right? It gets you back into that kind of child mind where you can just be like, come up with things like Sharknado. You know what I'm saying? Like, it makes
all the things you picked out of the universe.
Because it's like, it makes no sense. Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, who
doesn't? It's absurd.
It's absolutely absurd.
Right.
But Sharknado was a hit. It was huge.
I think it actually funded the Sci-Fi Channel for a good 5 years. Absolutely. No doubt. So look, yeah.
One day I'll tell you the story of Piranha Cane, because I actually pitched this as a show. It was like, I was like, from the makers of
Piranhas in a hurricane.
Yep. I was this close to selling that show. Somebody was trying to buy it, and I was like, I can't do it. I just felt,
oh my God, that's hilarious.
But yeah.
So, oh my gosh. So we've got, we're going to do a part 2, and what I'd love to ask is a couple quick questions. So just because we kind of wrap this one up. So what's the one thing about the future that keeps you up at night? Like when you think about the future's possibilities, like what keeps you, to be anywhere. It doesn't have to be like the current political state of the world. It's more of just what's on your mind a lot.
What's on my mind a lot for the future right now is the fact that, this idea of protopia it's very achievable. It's very achievable, but we seem to be really invested in dystopia. And I honestly think, it's because there aren't enough stories of protopia out there in the world. Dystopia makes a lot of money. And yes, I think as human beings, we're attracted to things that scare the shit out of us. That's in us, right? We spent how many thousands of years being prey to bigger animals, right? So those, those ancient neurons, as David Eagleman says, David Eagleman, as those ancient neurons exist. Those things that fire up our brains to feel fear exist. And it gives us a dopamine hit that we like, right?
Yeah.
But, there's a Monsters, Inc. version of this where the dopamine hit of all of us living with an enormous amount of potential and imagination is just so much greater. And I go to bed feeling really good about a protopian future. And what keeps me up at night is the lack of imagination of a lot of people who don't allow themselves to imagine that way. And it hurts. It hurts. And that's what keeps us in these conflicts, because we believe that a subjugation idea is a way to a future that is egalitarian, but it really just promotes more dystopia. It really just gets more war out there.
To move through that, what inspires you? Who or what, continues to inspire you to push things?
I mean, I really like the Gen Zers. I'm a big fan of them. And it's not because I have one only, but I was recently at a biotech conference called the Spirit of Asilomar with one of my colleagues at Stanford, Drew Endy, who is kind of the godfather of synthetic biology. And he and I have a lot of future conversations together, because when it comes to, I think this next century is the century of biology, right? The 20th century was like the physics century, right? I think this century is going to be the century of biology.
That's interesting. That's good fodder for next time. That is really gets some really, I call it the bio-nexus. Here, we're going to change what it means to be generations. It's going to change what it means to live. It's also, we have the potential to actually, dare I say the word fragment, or the species of humanity, like in terms of, who lives purely and dies, who changes their body, who changes themselves to go on interstellar travel, right? It's like all of that, right? So you have, done such breakthrough things. Like for you, like you've got such an amazing career you've already accomplished, and you have obviously more to do. When you're looking back and, sipping, you're in Jamaica, I know you go to Jamaica, and you're just like looking back at your life. How do you want your work to be remembered? Like the impact you've had, because you've had such great impact already.
I want my work to be remembered as constantly transformational and changing. Right?
Yep.
I don't want anyone to repeat what I've done. I always want to be the foundation that helps move us forward. I'm not a very nostalgic person. I don't really wallow in nostalgia. But I do like where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. Afro rhythms, we say we have a reverence for the past and awareness of the present, but the future is creativity. And if I leave anything, I want to leave that as a way, a reverence for the past and awareness for the present, but that future always be a creative future. And so we have to strive to stay more creative. What I say to a lot of my young scientists at Stanford who believe that they're inheriting a fucking crazy ass world. What I say to them is, as long as you can create, it's never too late. As long as you can create, it's never too late.
And that is the best way to wrap this episode together. So it's great. So thank you again for the time today. And we're going to do this again soon.
Yes, please.
Is there anything people should what's coming up for you, where people should check out, find you?
Yeah. The only social I do now is Instagram. So at Best Ahmed on Instagram, and a new website coming soon. There's a whole bunch of beautiful things happening. Afrorhythms.com, Afrorhythmfuturesgroup.com. Either one of those works.
Great.
Come check us out. And really beautiful work that's coming very soon.
Thank you, my friend. It's been
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Think Forward podcast. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms and at www.thinkforwardshow.com, as well as on YouTube under Think Forward Show. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the show. Now, about that thing I mentioned earlier about the book Super Shifts. Imagine having a playbook to navigate what's coming next. That's exactly why I wrote Super Shifts, to help you understand and prepare for the seismic changes shaping our world. Don't just react. Get ahead. Super Shifts is available now, wherever you get your books. And if you order today, you'll get exclusive bonus content. Head to supershiftsbook.com and grab your copy now and start future-proofing your life. The future won't wait. Why should you?